This is Erika Martinez, and today is August the 18th, 2001, and we are interviewing Mrs. Apolonia M. Abarca for the U.S. Latino and Latina World War II Oral History Project, and we are sitting in Mrs. Abarca's living room in her house in Corpus Christi, Texas, and thank you for having us here.
Welcome.
And if you could please tell us your name for the record.
Apolonia M. Abarca.
Let's start with your early life. Could you tell us about your family and your daily life? How was it like when you were a child?
I was a child, a very happy child. I was one of 10 children. My mother and my father had an education of about 7th or 8th grade education, but they were very interested in education. They would never allow their children to skip school because it was a no-no then. And so consequently, we all were able to get an education, graduate from high school, and most of us graduated from college. Mostly teachers and nurses, business administrators.
Where were you born?
I was born in Mission, Texas.
And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had 10 brothers and sisters.
How many brothers?
I had 4 brothers and 6 sisters. No, 5 sisters, because I'm one of them.
And what did your parents do for a living?
Okay, my father was a rancher. He had a meat market business in the city, and we were reared in the city. He bought cattle, had them slaughtered, and then he sold them at the meat market. My mother was strictly a home wife, a housewife with so many children. That's about all she could do.
How old were you when your parents passed away?
My mother passed away. She was 90 years old.
How old were you?
And this happened 20 years ago, so I was 70, 60 some odd years.
How about your father?
My father died, let's see, I was 1952, so I was like 20 some odd years old. 30. 20 or 30.
Where were they from?
My mother and father were both born in Stark County, Rio Grande City. And their parents were born there too, in little farming communities. Their parents came from Mexico, somewhere in Mexico, when Mexico was still part of, Texas, or Texas was part of Mexico.
Before the Mexican Revolution?
Yes, right. Uh-huh.
What are some of the special memories about your parents that you still recall?
My mother was a very smart lady. If she had had an opportunity to become a professional, she would have been a very good professional. She was very kind, very compassionate, and a loving mother.
What do you think that she would have become?
Probably a doctor, because she was a very smart lady, even though she only had a 7th or 8th grade education.
Okay. Did your family have to struggle economically?
Yes, I would say yes. Even though we didn't know the difference, we were in the kind of lower middle class financial, family. We always had food, we always had everything we needed, but we never had any extras. Going to college was very difficult when 3 of us were going to college at the same time.
Okay. What are some of the memories of your childhood that you still have?
Oh, going to school, playing, being very active. I always enjoyed sports. I was always doing volunteer work since the age of 13, I remember. I know that I helped a nurse take children to Galveston, crippled children, take them to Galveston for treatment. And also remember volunteer for the Department of Immigration, interviewing people and filling out their forms at a very early age, because that was my personality, to help people.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier that you liked sports and you were very active in school. What kind of activities in school were you on?
I was the captain of the baseball team. I was the captain of the volleyball team. I participated in what we used to call the Glee Club, which is the like Tigerettes or girls cheerleaders at the time.
How old were you?
I was 14, 15,
Okay.
becoming a teenager.
Were there a lot of Hispanics at the time in your school?
No, there were just, let's see, there were 54 in my class. The high school classes were small, but it was mostly Anglos, and there were a few Hispanics.
What did you guys do for fun, like when you were in high school? Besides, being in...
Mostly school activities. We were not permitted, or we didn't have anywhere else to go, let's put it that way. And so we just participated in anything that had to do with school.
Okay. What are some of the traditions that your mother or father maintain from their culture, I would say?
Well, mostly food. I think the tortillas and beans and rice and corn. Mostly cooking. The cooking.
Okay. So what? Huh?
Religion?
How about religion?
I'm a Protestant Methodist.
And were your parents Protestant?
No, my parents were Catholics, but they never went to church. So they let us go wherever, as long as we went to church, wherever we wanted to go, it was okay with them.
And what was your school like? Did you go to a segregated school?
I went to a segregated school until I went to high school. The first time that I sat in the classroom with Anglos, I was a freshman in high school.
What was it like going to a segregated school?
Well, I guess it was scary at the beginning, but I was accepted very well, and I never had any problems. Other people did, but I never had any problems.
Even in a segregated school?
Even in a segregated school. I was elected captain of the team.
They were
They were mostly Anglos.
No, but how was it? You went to a segregated school before you went to high school, right?
That's right.
So how was it going to that school before you went to high school? Being with all Hispanics?
It was a matter of life, that's everybody, that's what everybody did. So we accepted it as that's the way things are.
Was it okay with you, or did you feel discriminated?
I don't think I knew the difference. I was happy, and I didn't know the difference, because I can't say I was discriminated in that I never was with Anglos. So I didn't know the difference of discrimination. But I felt that maybe I would feel something when I went to high school and I would be integrated. But I did not have any problems in my high school.
How about outside of school? Because if you went to a all Hispanic school, then of course you probably wouldn't be discriminated because everybody else was Hispanic.
That's right.
But what about going somewhere else, to the store or to the restaurant, or just walking on the street? How will people treat you at the time for being Hispanic?
Well, personally, I don't remember ever being discriminated or being told or said anything or being hurt in any way. But we did live, you know, they knew we lived in the south part of town, which is where the Hispanics lived. But I do not recall any time having had any problems, which is very unusual. For me, it is, you know.
What about during high school?
I never had any problems in high school.
Not even with the Anglo kids?
No, not even with the Anglo
Were they
kids.
nice to you?
They were always nice to me. We were friendly. We didn't date because the Anglos did not let, you know, their kids date Hispanics. But we didn't look to date them either, so it was
Reciprocal.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Will your parents let you date an Anglo, you think?
I don't think so, because they never let us date anyway, Anglos or Latins, because we were going to school, and that was their primary objective, is for us to learn in school.
So you think that you and your brothers received the same kind of education?
Yes, but my brothers, they were discriminated, especially my oldest brother, when he graduated from high school and wanted to go to a school that did not accept Latinos.
What school was this one?
It was in Mission, but it was quite a bit before my time. It was many years before my time. So what they did, they didn't go to school in Mission. They went to school in McAllen, where they would not be, you know, segregated. They just boycotted the school, that, you know, and wouldn't go. And a lot of the people, the Hispanics, did that at that time.
Was that for college or
High school.
high school?
High school. Mm-hmm.
And how many brothers? You said that 2 brothers didn't go to college?
I had 2 brothers that didn't go to college. They have careers, but not college, not college.
Did you ever work while going to school?
Only I worked in a dry goods store on Saturdays the last year after I finished high school. And I remember my father, he didn't like for his daughters to work. His boys had to work, but the daughters didn't work. But I went to work without permission, and he never said anything. So I just kept on going every Saturday, and I earned 15 cents an hour.
Was that good pay or bad pay?
That's what everybody got paid, 15 cents an hour.
The minimum
Yeah,
wage?
I guess it must have been the minimum wage at that time, but that's what they paid anyway.
Did you say your father was a,
He had a business, a meat market.
did you ever help him out there?
No, my brothers did,
You were
but
not
the
allowed?
girls, no, the girls didn't work, according to my father.
And you mentioned early that you always wanted to be an engineer?
I really, my goal or my dream was being a mechanical engineer, but I also knew that I couldn't afford to go, you know, to college. And besides, girls were not really, I mean, it just wasn't a career that women were accepted in at that time. So I took my second choice as a nurse.
And you just told us that you used to make skirts.
I used to sew. When I was 13 years old, I didn't like the way my mother sewed my dresses. So I learned to sew, and after I learned to sew, I used to make skirts for the teachers, and they paid 25 cents per skirt. That's how I made a little extra money.
What was wrong with your mother's dresses?
I just didn't like the way they fit. I was too particular, you know, how I looked. She sewed very plain, and I guess I must have wanted something a little bit more fancier. Anyway, I decided I'll learn. And I did. I learned to sew, and I'm still sewing.
What was the first thing you bought after, with that money?
With the money that I made, gosh, it's so many years. I
How
was
old were you when you started?
13.
Wow.
So I don't remember. I really don't remember.
Were you making good money?
Well, in those years, 25 cents, was a lot of money. I don't remember what I did with it. That's how far gone this is gone. I don't remember.
Was it for you or for you to keep or for you?
No, it was for me to keep. No, it was for me. But I don't remember what I did with the money. When I got a little older, then I worked and I used the money when I went to that dry goods store, and I bought a typewriter and learned to type at home.
Do you remember, what do you remember about what was going on in the country when you were growing up? Any particular events that you...
At what age?
Historical events.
It doesn't matter, when you were growing up.
Sometime in the, I don't remember, I don't recall the year, but the government, I guess must be going through a depression or right after the depression. They had what they call the CC camps. And my brother, the one that didn't graduate, he went to the CC camp.
What did they do there?
They taught him how to work, how to, learn trades, and then help the country that was in bad shape at the time.
So after you graduated from high school, that was in Mission, right?
Yes.
You went to college?
I went to nursing school. I came to Corpus Christi, Fred Roberts School of Nursing in 1941.
How old were you at the time?
I was 20.
And how did you were saying that your father was opposed to the idea of having women leaving the house to work or maybe even have an education. How do you convince him to let you come all the way to Corpus and have a career?
It was not easy. My aunts were visiting, the house, and they thought nursing was a horrible career for anybody. And the day I left home, you thought they were going to a funeral because I was leaving to a career of horrible things, But by the time I got through, I was his favorite daughter, as far I was a good girl, and I was earning a living, and I was doing quite well, and he was very happy. When I said that he didn't want us to work, he didn't want us to work while we were going to school, to high school. Once we got through, he felt like we have to make a choice. Get an education, prepare yourself in case you get married and something happens to your marriage, then you can always have something to back you up. That was his philosophy. And we listened to our parents.
Did you encounter any difficulties when you first came to Corpus Christi?
Well, talking about the discrimination, since I was the only Latin in the class, I was a little apprehensive, really, because it was a new experience. I've never been away from home, and living with Anglos, and I went into my nursing school, and I went to my dorm, and I've been a very neat person. I went in, and I got my table, my bed, and all that, and there was a lot of junk in the table, so I just threw them out, threw everything that was there. Well, it turned out it was, in those years you got little pieces of rags and rolled your hair, and then they had little pieces of wire that came in the pounds of coffee cans or coffee bags. We rolled our hair with those things. Well, it turns out that they belonged to my roommate. But I didn't know because they were in my side of the dorm. And she remembers that she came from Pounding Mills, Virginia. And so she had never been around Latinos. She came because she thought she would see a lot of cowboys and she had heard that the Mexicans would kill you. They had knives and they'd kill you. And here she is. I am her roommate. So that first night, she didn't sleep because I had thrown all those little rags that she had there, and she thought maybe she's going to kill me tonight. Later on through the years, she told us she became a very good friend. She loved Latinos, and she wanted to date only Latinos. She didn't want to date anybody else. See how people had ideas of how bad Latinos were in those times.
Were you paying for your own education at the time?
My father paid the first year, and my brother paid the second year and third year.
So your father was very supportive.
Yes,
of your
uh-huh.
success.
Did you encounter any difficulties because you were a woman? Was there, I mean, I know there was discrimination, racially, but was there any because you were?
I don't think so. At least I don't. If anything happened, it was so minor that I don't even recall. It haven't hurt me in any way.
So you don't feel you were discriminated in the nursing school?
No, I was not. Personally, I was not. I know that the directors didn't want for the Anglo girls to date Latinos, and I'm sure that they didn't want me to date Anglos, but I was never told that. But I could sense that was a feeling there.
Did you ever date an Anglo?
Yes, but we didn't tell them. They didn't know. We would, I had met my husband to be then, at the time, and any time we were going to go anywhere, I always went with Tony, and the girls went with somebody else. And then when we got to where we were going to go, we exchanged boyfriends. So it was, you had to do little things like that to live.
So you were in nursing school during World War II?
Yes. I went in June of 1941, and the war broke Pearl Harbor, December the 6th, 1941. 6 months later.
Did at any point in your life did you think you would have to go overseas to serve the country?
I had planned to volunteer because in my last year of nursing school, they had what they called the Cadet Corps, and I had thought about joining the Cadet Corps for my last year. Because my parents were having a little rough time with many kids, and 3 in college, making ends meet. So I was going to go. Then I found out that my brother was already in the service. He sent me money to pay my tuition. So my tuition was already paid, so I said, why go? I don't have to serve. I don't have to. This way I can do whatever I want to. But my sister, who was already in her first year of nursing school, nursing training, she joined the Cadet Corps, and she joined the service later on.
Where was your brother stationed?
He was stationed originally in Denver, Colorado, and then he went to Europe. He was in England. He was a gunner with one of the B-17s, I believe it was. And he was wounded while he was there, but he got back home eventually.
Okay.
Do you remember where you were when you heard that World War II had started?
Yes, I was in the dorm at the school at the time, and we were all shocked. We didn't know what to expect. We were so young. We didn't know what war was. We'd never seen a war.
We were all radio.
Yes. So we were afraid because we didn't know what to expect.
Were you able? I mean, when you read the newspaper, were you able to know what was going on overseas?
Not everything, because a lot of it was kept, secret. It was military secret, so you didn't know just what they wanted us to know, what was on the radio. We didn't know a lot. but we know there was a war.
You say that at first you had the desire to volunteer
Yes, I
for
had.
the war.
Yes.
What made you volunteer, even after knowing that you belonged to the group of people who were being segregated, who didn't have a voice part in this country? Why would you still want to volunteer for a country that will not give you your place and your rights as a U.S. citizen?
Because I guess we were so innocent. We did not know the difference, and that was exciting at the time. As young teenagers, it was exciting to go in the service and see the world. We'd never been anywhere, so that was a good way to go. We never considered that we were going to have problems or, anything like it. We just didn't think about it.
So you didn't pretty much realize
No.
what a war
It was all about.
was all about.
That's correct.
It was just about going overseas and
Yes, Of course, I don't know that I would have gone overseas, but I would have been in the service as a nurse. And I'm sure there was always a need for nurses in the service.
Did you listen to any Spanish radio stations, or did you read any Spanish newspaper during the war years?
Yes, we did. They had a little publication here in Corpus Christi called La Prensa, I think it was.
Oh, that was published in San Antonio.
Yes, and people would get it, and I'd read it once in a while. I did not know a lot of Spanish, I could read it, but there were a lot of things I did not understand. But I always got the idea when I didn't know what some words were that I was not familiar with.
You grew up speaking both languages?
Yes,
So your parents spoke English
Yes.
and Spanish?
that's right.
So after graduation, where did you get your first job in the?
When I graduated from nursing school, I was called and offered a job at Memorial Hospital here in Corpus Christi. So I took the job, the position, and I worked in the operating room, setting up. It was a brand new hospital. We were just setting up the hospital. So I helped set up the operating room and the emergency room. And I worked there for a while. I don't recall how many months or years, but then I was promoted to supervisor of nurses for the outpatient clinic. And I set up the outpatient clinic and became the supervisor nurse there. And I stayed there for a number of years. And after that, I went because of better pay. And then, at that time, they paid $160. Nurses made $160 a month. I got an offer for $250. So I joined the U.S. Public Health Service in a hospital here in town. And it only lasted for a year because the war was already, come towards the end. And they moved the hospital to San Antonio. And I was offered the position to transfer to San Antonio. But my boyfriend was coming home, and we were going to be married when he got back, because I wouldn't marry him before.
Back from where? Where was he?
From the service. He was in Germany. He was fire chief for General Patton, and he got back from the European.
And this was your husband-to-be?
My husband-to-be. We got married after he came, and
Where was your husband from?
he was born in Corpus Christi. His parents were born in Corpus Christi.
What was his name?
Antonio Abarca.
And you met him here?
I met him here. I met him while I was in school, in nursing school.
How?
I went to a dance, and my cousin had taken me to a dance, and he introduced me to him. And the next day, he called me at the nurse's home and wanted to talk to someone by the name of Rebecca. Well, there was no Rebecca around there. He forgot my name. So he talked to Mrs. DePena's sister, and said, well, Tony, she knew him. I said, where did you meet her? How did you meet her? She said, well, she was at the dance lesson. I said, oh, you mean Polly? So after that, he called me Polly. He called me all the time, and he went in the service, and he used to write to me all the time, and our romance stayed until he got back for 4 years. When he got back, we got married.
What year did you meet him?
In 1941.
Right when the war started.
Yes.
And so you met him, and he left.
He left.
How long after that?
He left in 1943.
So 2 years after you guys had met.
Yes, right. And
You
then
got married in
46.
46.
Uh-huh.
He came back in 46.
In 46. And we got married in 46. While he was gone, of course, I took this job, and then I went to, I was doing volunteer work as a Red Cross nurse for in the city, as a community settlement house. I used to teach English and Spanish home nursing for anybody that wanted to come to take the classes in the community house. And I helped in many causes in the city. Having worked at the outpatient clinic, I was the first nurse to help open the first eye clinic, the first cancer clinic, all of the clinics were set up at the time. And it was quite an experience, and I learned a lot from that. Then I went to work with the public health nurses. I always had a little love for public health nurses, because that's how I really got introduced to nursing, through a public health nurse when I was a young kid. So I went to work as a public health nurse, and from there I was asked to take a position as a director of Planned Parenthood. And I stayed there until the health department merged the services of Planned Parenthood with the city county. And I participated in the obtaining of the first federal grant in the United States for family planning in Corpus Christi.
What year was that?
That was in 1964. That was, at that time, the word birth control was a no-no. But I was daring, I guess, and I accepted the position and trained, and we wrote a proposal, and it was accepted. And so we established a lot of clinics, and then we turned them over to the health department. And I went to work for the state school as the director of nursing services at the state school, and I stayed there until I retired.
What year did you?
In 1974. It's a long time ago. I just decided I don't want to work anymore. I've worked long enough, so I said, I'm going to stay home. So I've stayed home, and I've done a lot of volunteer work. I have devoted all my retirement years as hobbies, arts, crafts, church work, volunteer in the community. Most of volunteer work. I took up art, and I did all the paintings.
What do you think was your drive in being a pioneer in the nursing field of your generation? Could you say you participated in a lot of things that you were the
Well, I was just I don't know. I guess it's just inborn, because I was always ready. I was up there ready to help anybody. Anything. I'd take a challenge. Anything was a challenge. So I'm still taking all kinds of challenges today. Just several months ago, I volunteered to raise funds to buy a new organ for our church. Well, I did. 6 months, we have a new organ. I'm just always.
You were spontaneous.
Yes, I've always been like that. And I'm the only one in the family like that. Everybody else is very calm and collected.
So would you attribute your successes to your
Drive.
or experiencing new things?
That's right. And then I married a man that is very jolly, happy, and outgoing, and very smart. And so with the two of us together, we just made a good pair.
Oh, that's so cute.
He went to high school he was a self-taught, self-educated man. He spoke English, Spanish, German, and French, and the sign language, self-taught. And he was known as the best interpreter in the state of Texas.
Wow.
He was a happy person.
What do you mean? Did he receive some kind of award?
He had several, and then the lawyers, they waited until he was available before they do interviews with people and take depositions and have him as the interpreter in the courts. And he was very well known.
What made you fall in love with him during a time of struggle?
He was very persistent. He wouldn't accept no. he just kept on, until I said yes.
Did you or your husband face any difficulties or had any struggles because you guys were Latinos?
My husband did. He did when he was growing up. He was one of the few Latinos that could speak very good English and get along very well with Anglos. But there still was the discrimination. He had two things. One, he was Protestant, a Latino Protestant who spoke very good English. And there was discrimination from the Anglos and discrimination from the Latinos too. But he managed. He fought it all and did very well. His mother was a piano teacher and she always taught him English.
Do you remember any racial conflicts going on during the 1950s or the 60s?
Oh yes. Oh my gosh. They used to have, there were so many things going on at that time. There was always something. The LULAC were involved in all sorts of discrimination cases and
Are there any particular ones that you remember?
There were a lot of discrimination in hospitals where the Latinos were never, say like in the charity wards, the Latinos were always placed with blacks, but they were never placed with Anglos, even though they were all poor. I mean, they were all charity patients, and there was a lot of conflict on that in that area. The schools, there was a lot of discrimination in the schools. There were a lot of children who were not accepted because they didn't speak English, and there were a lot of conflicts at that time. I was not really involved in the things myself, but I know of them because I was around in the city and I heard them and read them. And
I heard that if you wanted to go to the movies, you had to go upstairs in the balcony.
Where all the blacks were.
Where all the blacks.
well, by the time I came,
This is when Mrs. Peña.
Mrs. Peña had a lot of problems. She had a lot of problems. Sometimes I think maybe because I was a little white, I didn't have as many problems. That's what I think, because a lot of people had problems.
Hazel eye.
And until I opened my mouth, they knew I was Mexican. But they thought I was Anglo. I am assuming that because I never had any problems. I know Ms. Peña did. She had a lot of problems.
She said that even there's a park, I can't remember the name of the park here, that
It was a public beach.
yeah, it was a public beach park or something, and Mexicans weren't allowed there.
Well, in those years, Mexicans were not allowed anywhere, and they were not allowed to anywhere. There were signs, no Mexicans. It said no Mexicans allowed, or no. The water fountains were separated. No Mexicans allowed in some water fountains. The theaters, I'm sure, were. I didn't have a lot of money, so I didn't worry because I didn't go anywhere because I didn't have the money to spend to go.
But were the places that did have some signs and that
Yes,
were discriminating other people, and the places that you were able to go, were you ever discriminated?
No. I never encountered. I never went anywhere where they said you can't come in because you're Mexican. Never.
Did they ever ask you?
No, I was never asked.
Did
But
you
I
get
would go-
away with it?
Did they
I mean,
know?
Well, no, I went, with my husband, and he went in, and he was Mexican.
And he looked very Mexican.
He's very Mexican. He was dark, but he spoke very good English, and he had a lot of Anglo friends. That was very unusual, That was very unusual because there was a lot of discrimination. But like I say, I was spend most of my time in school and working. I didn't have time to get involved in.
Yeah. But you were aware of the discrimination.
Oh yes, definitely.
How did you feel about that?
I thought it was
other
terrible.
people
No.
Of your own.
Yeah, I thought it was not fair because the people were good people. They were smart people. They're intelligent. They could compete with any Anglo or with anybody. They were, just as well. It's just that they happened to be Mexicans or Latinos, and they were discriminated against. I'm sure that if I had been in a position somewhere that was happening, it probably would have happened to me. But since I always was in the nursing field, and there was a need for nurses, and I was very capable. And so I was able to, I felt that we always had to work a little bit harder to prove ourselves. But I cannot say I was discriminated because I was a Latino. If they were discriminating, they were not showing it to me.
Did you ever feel discriminated for being a woman?
No, because I went in the field where were mostly women. No, I really didn't.
And okay, during those years when there was a lot of conflict going on in the 50s and 60s with the Chicano movement, do you think that all those movements, and did they have any impact? Did they change anything, in your opinion?
Yes, I think they did. I think that the people that did some of them was harmful, but a lot of it was very helpful because they fought for something that was right. They fought for equality, which is the right thing. If you are capable, what difference does it make if you're a Latino or you're an Anglo or any other race? And I think that we've come a long ways, that the Latinos have come a long ways. That you see a lot of professionals now. They're not discriminated against. They can do anything they want, go to any college they want to, they can afford it, or get scholarships. In our day and time, there was no such thing as scholarships. We either had to pay or stay home, one of the two. But I think it has helped a lot.
Do you think that they were needed, those movements?
Some of them, yes. I think some of them were helped a lot in fostering an understanding between the Anglos and the Latinos. And even though it took a long, long time, I think that now, I'm sure there still is discrimination because there's personal discrimination. We discriminate against ourselves sometimes. We discriminate against the Anglos, but it's a personal thing, not a community thing. And I think that now you can just about go anywhere you want to without being discriminated. I'm sure that somewhere you'll find somewhere some people that they'll never change. But things are better now than they were in my day and time, even though I did not suffer very much.
How did your life differ from that of your son?
100%. My son, we were the only Latinos in this neighborhood when we first moved here. And that's on second thought, that's the only experience that I ever had at being discriminated. But it was very short-lived. I moved in here and I was the only Anglo. I was the only Hispanic. There was an Anglo next door and an Anglo on the other side. And when they heard that the Latino was going to buy, they got together, this man got together with the other one and said, let's just, you and I buy this house so they won't have a Mexican live here. Well, the man next door said, I don't care. If they have the money to buy the house, they can, it's okay, they can be my neighbors, I don't care. So the man next door, he moved out. That was the only time that I can say, but the man never talked to me. We never talked to each other, so I just heard from the other neighbor. My son went to school here. He went with all the kids were Anglos. He was reared with Anglos. And he went to school and went to high school, participated in all kinds of activities, and he's now a businessman. His two children go to what used to be an all-Anglo school. It is not Anglo now. I think it's more like 60 and 40, 60 Hispanics and 40 Latinos. And my granddaughter just graduated from high school, King High School, and she got a $60,000 scholarship to go to San Marcos. So she'll be going to San Marcos next week.
Did you teach Spanish to your son?
We spoke Spanish, but he would rather speak English. He understands. He took Spanish in high school, and he understands a lot of Spanish. He does not converse very well, but he understands Spanish quite well. I guess English was the easiest language for him because he never, well, we always spoke English at home. And
Why
so,
was that?
just habit. There was no reason except that we just, I guess, felt more comfortable speaking English.
You're a third generation, right?
Yes.
Third or fourth?
No, let's see. I'm about the third generation.
Your mom is from here.
Yes.
Well, she was
Yes.
from here. And your grandma was from here.
Yes.
Your great-grandma was
Yes,
from
right.
Mexico.
So, great-grand.
Yes.
Yeah. The fourth generation. I'm fourth generation. So,
Let's see, what else?
So she never participated in World War II?
No, she didn't.
no, all I did was just the volunteer that I did as a Red Cross
She was
nurse.
about to go.
As a Red Cross nurse, teaching in the communities, in the community settlement house, but I did not participate in the war. I was not in the service.
The bill, the ring, your brother went and he got the money, and so you didn't have to go, right?
That's right.
How was it for you to have a brother in the war overseas? How was that for you and for your family?
It was very traumatic because we were very close. We were a very close family, and well, not knowing what to expect. And he wanted to be a flyer, and he went in. He did not make the schooling, but he became a gunner, and so he would go on those missions. Some of the first missions that they participated during the beginning of the war.
Did at any point, did you think he wouldn't come back?
Oh yes, he was lost for 6 months. He was
Prisoner?
No, he was not a prisoner. His plane was down in France, and the underground took him under until the guys could come back for him. And then from there they took him to a hospital, and he was in a hospital for 6 months, and we didn't know whatever happened to him. We just knew that he was on a mission, and we don't know what happened to the mission. But at the end of 6 months, he was able to write, and told us that he had been injured and that he was in the hospital and that he was getting along fine.
Oh boy, I bet it would have been.
Well, my poor mom.
Must have been really hard to have your brother and your fiance.
Yeah, that's the same. They used to write to me, and I used to write to them and said, I think I'm going to go ahead and go. I don't know, I was adventurous, and I wanted to go and, find out what it was all about. And the road says, don't go. He says, don't go. They would both of them write and said, don't go, it's rough. The nurses have a rough time out here. And I think that they really talked me out of it, the both of them. But I was ready to go. You know, just
Mrs. De Peña's sister went.
yes. My sister did too. She was a wave, but she was a nurse too.
Where was she?
My sister didn't go overseas. She was in, let's see, in Fort Dix, in New York, New Jersey, and she was in Georgia for her regular training. And she never went overseas. She just stayed in the different camps. And when she got out of the military, she went back to nursing school and finished. She quit school. She quit nursing school and went in service. And then she came back and finished at Mount Sinai and Jewish Hospital in New York.
Are you currently involved in any community organizations or any community volunteer groups?
No, not presently. All I'm doing now is just church work. I'm 81 years old. I think I've done my share.
Were you involved back then?
Which one?
Were you involved back then?
Involved
At
in.
the time in any community organization?
I was always. I never belonged to a Latino organization. I was never invited. I never was, but I always went with my husband when they were having all sorts of fiestas and parties and juntas of all kinds of things. You know, I would go with my husband.
Was he involved?
No, he was not involved.
He was invited.
They were his friends. He was, everybody liked him.
He was just outgoing.
Yeah, everybody liked him, so he got invited, you know. And so we'd go to all these different things, but I never participated as a member of any specific group. I belonged to social clubs where we were all Latinos, but they was not. They was strictly social. It was not a.
What changes have you seen in the lives of Latinos over the years?
I think they have improved their life, their way of life, their education. They are more education aware. They are participating in education projects in schools, more active in PTAs and band and boosters and all the different organizations that people didn't used to. Parents didn't go. I know my parents never went to a PTA. We went, but they didn't. Now my son spends all his time with PTA and the boosters and my grandson plays. He's in the honors band, so they're always doing something for the band. And so he's always doing something, participating. Right now he has a special project with providing computers for children who have cancer. And he sees that they get the computers so they can continue school at home and while they're in the hospital receiving treatments. And so he's always he's very active too. He's a lot like me, you know, always doing something.
What are other strides that you think Latinos have made?
I think mostly it's they're proud of themselves. They're able to meet the Anglos or anybody else on a one-to-one basis. You know, you don't have to be afraid or ashamed or think something is going to happen to you. I mean, they can speak for themselves now. They don't need anybody to talk to them. The majority, of course, we still have some poor people that you need to still fight for. But that's being poor. That's not necessarily discrimination, you know.
What are other things or problems that you think still need to be resolved for Latinos?
Parent involvement. I think that is the most important thing because we see that so many of the Latinos still drop out. like, well, in this class that my son was talking about the other day, they started like 160, and they ended up with 84 by the time they from high school as first year freshmen. By the time they finished, a little bit less than 50% had all quit, dropped out. We still have to work on parents insisting that the children get an education and go to school and maintain the educational level in order to be able to get ahead. I think without an education, you cannot get ahead.
Do you think the relationships between Latinos and Anglo-Americans have improved?
I think it has improved a lot. A lot. I'm sure that there is some areas in the state that are not, but I'm speaking locally because this is what I know. And it has improved very much. Here, I mean, everywhere you go, people, Mexicans, Latinos live next door to Anglos. Here, my neighbors have been here 30 years. They don't want me to move. They're all Anglos over there, you know. And so, you know, yet when I first came, those ones didn't want me to move in here. See, so there's been a lot of changes for the good, but we still need to push and continue to encourage parents to participate, to be more aware of what the children are doing and where they are. Today, it's you can just see just what's going on TV, how the kids are being neglected because the parents have to work. See, in our day and time, mothers didn't work. Mothers were there to see that we got home, to see that we did our homework, to see that we ate. And now, you can't live on one salary. Even if you want to, you can't. So it's just that quality time has to be given to the children.
What advice would you give to younger generations?
It is more important, the family is more important than all of the money you can earn. Money is necessary, but your family means more, and their future is more important than anything else.
Anything else you would like to add?
Well, I don't think so. I feel like I'm a very fortunate person. I don't regret anything in my life. I'm a very happy person. And if I had to live it all again, I don't know where I would do any changing, because I've been very successful in every way that I have, in everything that I have tried. I said I started with my first. I'm a nurse. I'm never taking care of sick people as far as bathing. I mean, you know, I ended up with just administrative jobs. I've never had to do bedside nursing, which is very unusual, especially for a Latino, to be at the top, always at the top. And the Latinos here in town, you know, like I said, the girls did not have professions, but they all were, you know, they all respected me and they liked me and they were not jealous or anything like that. So I have lived a very happy life.
Very good.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for giving us your time.
Well, I don't think that I could help you too much as far as the war and things, you know, because I guess I'm just one of those fortunate people that just happened to come around, you know, at the right time or something. Or maybe I was just too ambitious I wouldn't let anything, like most people say, dirt under my feet, let dirt go or grass go under my feet. And I'm a very good organizer. I don't know if Mrs. DePanto, but she says that the Lord has not taken me home yet, because if I go to heaven, I want to reorganize heaven.
Do you guys go to the same church?
Yes, we go to the same church.